Hey guys, today's video is going to be a bit different. I'm going to talk about my story from going when I first started programming to where I am now, which is essentially just a senior front-end engineer. I've ran a SaaS for the past 4 years, and I just started another startup, which is a SaaS, a couple weeks ago. And I mean this to be sort of just like another point of data for you guys to sort of use and look at and understand like what I did, and then you can sort of use that for your own calculations to try and understand where you guys want to be. And just to get to know me a bit better, I feel like every channel that is commentary based should have something like this. So yeah, that's why I'm making this video. And one of you guys requested it as well. And I guess I'll start from the beginning of my programming journey, which happened when I was 14. I went to a high school that ended up teaching coding in grade 9, which was pretty early. And I really loved programming, but I was extremely bad at it. It got to the point where I tried taking programming the year after and I did really bad. And I tried taking programming again the year after that. And my teacher was actually like, this isn't for you. You should probably not do this anymore. It'll tank your grades. You won't be able to get into university and stuff like that. And I ended up not doing it. And what I ended up doing instead was going into computer engineering, which is different than software engineering or software development. It has a lot more to do with hardware because I'm like, if I can't do the code part, at least maybe I'll try and do the hardware part. And throughout all of this, my grades were really bad. I didn't get into my first choice university or anything like that. And I was really interested in like becoming an esports pro, actually. I played a game called StarCraft 2. I was Grandmaster at the time at StarCraft. And I really wanted to like move to Korea, become a professional player and stuff like that. But I was just never like good enough. I was good enough to get like top 200 on the server, but not good enough to become like top 2 in the world. Type of thing. So I ended up going to university for computer engineering. And that's when I realized like maybe, you know, if I'm able to hit this milestone in StarCraft and be this good at StarCraft, maybe I can take the approach I took to learning that game and apply it to other things. And I started doing programming again. And I sort of took my approach that I used to get good at StarCraft and I used it towards programming. And in a short amount of time, I started doing things that I wasn't capable of doing back in high school. I don't know if I just like developed more or if I was more interested in it or I dedicated more time and motivation to it or if my learning strategy was different. But things started coming together more. I was spending a lot more time doing it. And I was actually able to land a research position with a professor that had a master's student that needed someone to create some scraping tool for them on Twitter. And I had used the Twitter API for some personal projects. So I got a bit of experience working with a graduate student doing that. And that was sort of like the first time I ever got paid to program something. Before that, the only jobs I'd ever had is like I was a security guard. And I also used to work at an amusement park and stuff like that. So it was really cool getting paid more to do coding, which I could just do from the comfort of my own home. And I came from like a really poor background. So the money was nice as well. It was like $20 an hour Canadian at the time. And that was like the most I've ever seen. That was like as much as my like parents made essentially. So that was really awesome. And I learned a lot working with that professor. And I ended up applying for a job in Silicon Valley at a company called Intuit for an internship at a hackathon that me and my friends went at. I started doing a ton of hackathons. Long story short, I got the internship. It was amazing. I loved the company. I loved being there. And after I graduated, I wanted to either go back to Intuit to work full time or to Google. And I didn't get through in my like I think close to final round Google interview. I think it was the round before the final round. So I didn't get through to Google. So I ended up just taking the full time offer at Intuit, and I moved to Intuit in California from Toronto, where I am right now. And I worked there for around I think it was 5 months before I realized that I'm someone who like likes doing a lot of stuff on the side. So I was doing YouTube back then before I got a job. I always did a bunch of YouTube stuff even before like this channel started and I started doing coding content. And I also used to do like a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. So I would like sell stuff in high school to make some additional money to like buy a new gaming keyboard or a new gaming mouse and stuff like that. And the visa I was on didn't allow me to start a business or to make income outside of my job at Intuit while I was in the United States. It's called a J1 visa. So I ended up quitting just 5 months after working there. And I loved it there. I didn't quit because it was bad or anything. I absolutely loved the culture there. I loved the people there. I was on track to do really well at the company. I was performing like above and beyond where I should have been for a new grad and stuff like that. So I had a pretty promising, I guess, career path, but I really wanted to just do my own stuff. So I ended up leaving, and I sort of got into this cycle of starting a bunch of companies and taking all the money I had saved up and stuff like that and putting it towards companies. And then I would eventually run out of money. And then I would use a platform called TopTal, which I got into while I was in university. And it's pretty much like a consulting service. You sign up on the platform as a developer, and they have this giant internal job board. And their whole premise is they've already pre-vetted these developers, so you don't have to waste time and resources interviewing them. You can just like have them hop on. Sometimes the contracts are a couple months. Sometimes my longest one was 2 years. So I would cycle between spending all my money trying to start a business, whether it was in e-commerce, whether it was a SaaS company. I had something called The Forge way back when I was in university that I continued, and it was a platform that helped teach students the actual coding you need to get a job. So we would help students like find hackathons near them. We would help them make personal projects. We would show them how to do LeetCode and give them an intro to data structures and algorithms before like everyone knew this is what you needed to do to get a tech job. That was the thing that I was trying to help people with. And I remember launching, and I had like a subscription service. Like for $25 a month, you got access to my platform, to my email newsletter, to the job offers, because I had recruiters like sending me job offers for people in my platform. And I remember at the time, on the first day I launched, I got 8 people subscribed to it, and that's $25 each. So that's like $200 a month in monthly recurring revenue. And at the time, I'm sitting there like, well, I just quit my like 6-figure job. I need to be making like millions off of something. And I didn't realize for the first day of your launch to like just get out of nowhere, just from launching on Reddit and like the people that have subscribed to me on YouTube, to get $200 in monthly recurring revenue, that there's a large demand for that. And I could have built that. And I was really bad with business and stuff like that back then, and entrepreneurship. I didn't understand how good of a sign that was. I thought it was a terrible sign because I'm like, this is $200 a month. I need like this amount to pay rent for my mom and I. So how am I going to live off of this? And I ended up cutting it short, which is one of my regrets that I have. I didn't push into that when I had the idea far before anyone even realized stuff like this was important. So from that point on, I like went from thing to thing. I did a bunch of e-commerce brands. I tried to do like consulting for other things other than software, and try to start a consulting agency. I did marketing. I did a lot of marketing, a lot of e-commerce and stuff like that. I did like AI chatbots before like ChatGPT existed and stuff like that. And I just did a whole bunch of businesses. And then as soon as I like went into credit card debt or my bank account was low, I would get another a high paid consulting job at TopTal for another client. I'd work that for like a year, maybe. I'd pay off like a bunch of that debt, save up a ton of money, and then go back to like spending that money trying to start a business. And that was my cycle for a good like 5 years, actually. That sort of still is my cycle to this day. And it was really interesting. I started a lot of things. I worked at companies like Alteryx, which is a great like data science company out in, I think, Colorado. I worked at AXA XL, which is a one of the biggest insurance companies in Europe. So super corporate environment, and it was not a pleasant experience whatsoever, but it was what allowed me to do things like buy a house, save up a bunch of money, invest a lot of money. And it's also what helped me fund my esports company, which I then started in 2020. And I ran that esports company. It was a SaaS company that was aimed to provide analytics and match stats and stuff like that to competitive Valorant fans and competitive Valorant teams. And we ran that for around 4 years. It's still up and running today. It's a bit less of a focus, more of a lifestyle business instead of like a startup now. And I learned a lot doing that, and I put a lot of money into it. I didn't understand the whole idea of like making sure that your startup was making money instead of like just spending money and hoping that the money would come down later. That might work for social networks like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, but it doesn't really work that well with a SaaS company. And I learned that the hard way years into that journey. But it's what really taught me how to be a very, very good engineer, I would say. I used to work at a lot of companies, and I was pretty good at what I did. I did YouTube videos and stuff like that, but you will never learn as much about like actually building. You could be a great programmer. You can like read every textbook on JavaScript. You can like know all these design patterns. You can know you can memorize the documentation about React and stuff like that. But in my opinion, the most important thing about programming, if you're trying to do it in an entrepreneurial capacity, is being a builder. And you don't learn how to be a builder by working at a corporate company, not as much at least. You don't learn how to be a builder by reading textbooks and reading the documentation and knowing all the ins and outs and small little details of libraries and coding languages. You learn how to be a builder by creating things that you're interested in, shipping it. And we got to the point where we had 500,000 page views a month. We were bringing in like almost 5 figures in monthly recurring revenue. And, you know, we've had times where the site was being attacked, where the site was going down, where users couldn't access data, where we had to monitor uptime, where we built things that weren't meant to scale to this many users. And we had to like rewrite whole parts of our backend and onboard onto new different tools in order to support the amount of users we were getting. And the past 4 years of running my SaaS as a startup, so to speak, I've never learned more about programming. I must have like programmed on average like at least like 10 hours a day. And this is like real programming, not like job programming where, you know, in the past while I was working jobs, you might have some time where you're just like coding something dumb. Then you get in a meeting to talk about that little small feature. And then like you might take a week to code something small because, you know, there's tons of approvals that need to happen and tons of, no, this is like you're pushing a prod a couple times a day. You're building big things in small amount of times. You're supporting tons of users. You're getting a bunch of bug complaints. And we were the only 2 engineers on the project. We built like our code base was at the end like 10 repositories, 3 of which were internal npm libraries that we ended up using, and we built some really complex code for something as small as an esports site, which is sort of hilarious to me. If we were in a different industry or we did something like different other than esports where the market was bigger, people were willing to pay more, and the customers, the actual like market cap was just bigger than like a small esports company, we probably could have sold that company now for like maybe 8 to 9 figures if we're being honest, with the amount of work and programming that me and my other engineering co-founder put into it. So that just goes to show like it's a very good idea. I know people that have coded like RuneScape applications that are insanely complicated and it took them like years to code, but the actual results that they got from that are like not on a monetary scale. So I believe that like whether you choose to code like something you're passionate about, like a RuneScape plugin, or an esports company versus like something like Facebook or Instagram, the difficulty in running those businesses, one of the biggest things I learned at least is that the difficulty in running the business and coding that business is probably the same for both businesses. What determines how much you're going to get compensated for it has a lot more to do with the market itself than how challenging I think the problem is within that market. So that's something I learned. But yeah, the past 4 years doing that has taught me a lot about programming. I'm more of a builder than I ever would have been. I know so much more about like the whole idea of like building startups and stuff like that than I ever would have known from like working at a company even for 20 years, let's say, in my opinion. And I learned a lot about business that I never would have learned as well. So, that's like probably the biggest thing I've learned from. So I'd recommend like if you guys want to learn like that and set yourselves up so that, you know, you can build awesome companies, make a living doing something like that. I love building, and that's why I'm going to do it over and over again, regardless of the monetary outcome. I highly recommend just start building something. Build something, talk to people that you think would like it, see if they like it or not. If they don't, add stuff on, see, you know what I mean? Try to figure out what problems they have, make something that's useful to them. And I promise you will learn way more than you ever could working a job at another company, unless maybe you're working at like a startup. But even then, it's very different when you're working somewhere and like you're getting an average paycheck to care about it. And it's like, yeah, you know, from 9 to 5, I care a lot about this, versus like, this is something you own. You have full skin in the game. You have full ownerships. Like, to me, there's no difference between like a Wednesday and a Saturday or Sunday. Like my hours are the same every single day of the week on how much I work and how much I do. So I don't have that same mindset that I used to when I was purely just doing work in a corporate environment. So it teaches you about accountability, to care about something, and how to build stuff that people likes. And that's pretty much how I got to where I am now. And now I'm launching another SaaS in a much bigger market and hoping to do the same thing, essentially, just a lot better and with a lot more things that I learned on this journey. So if that was useful, let me know in the comments if you have anything else you want me to talk about. I figure it's good to have at least one of these videos on the channel just in case anyone was wondering. But yeah, see you guys in the next video.